This is Plant-Based Briefing. Is honey vegan? Everything you need to know about why bees make honey. Part 2 by Mark Hawthorne at vegnews.com. And I'm Marian Erickson, host of this curated content plant-based podcast, where I narrate articles on plant-based and vegan living with permission in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And today's is a bit longer than that, so it's a two-parter. I read part 1 yesterday, so go back and listen to that first, and then come back here for part 2. So now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Is honey vegan? Everything you need to know about why bees make honey. Part 2 by Mark Hawthorne at vegnews.com. Is any honey ethical? One poll found that 20% of people who labeled themselves vegan saw no conflict with eating honey. And this raises the question, can any honey really be considered ethical? Among conscious consumers who seek ethical, or at minimum least harm, products, there is a niche for ethical honey. This comes from bee farmers who claim to care more about the welfare of the bees than maximizing profit. Clearly, this excludes nearly all commercial honey and ignores the inherent injustice of animal exploitation. Consumers who want ethical honey generally buy from balanced, natural, or biodynamic beekeepers. Balanced beekeepers only take honey when there is a surplus. Natural beekeepers create hives that mimic how bees live in the wild, such as in logs. Biodynamic beekeepers consider themselves stewards of bees rather than their keepers and interfere with bee colonies as little as possible. Commercial bee farmers would have consumers believe that the honey industry provides a critical role in the pollination of crops and the conservation of bee populations, but domesticated, sometimes called managed, honeybees do not pollinate as well as their wild cousins, and managing hives does nothing to protect wild pollinators. An individual visit by a native bee is actually worth far more than an individual visit by a honeybee, Brian Danforth, professor of entomology at Cornell University, said in Scientific American. Honeybees are more interested in the nectar. They don't really want the pollen if they can avoid it. The wild native bees are mostly pollen collectors. They are collecting the pollen to take back to their nests. Dr. Danforth adds that managed honeybees often escape the hive and go feral, easily invading and dominating a vast array of ecosystems. It's these feral honeybees especially that pose a challenge to nearly all native pollinators, since honeybees forage through the growing season for nectar and pollen from a wide array of flowers, building up vast numbers. When honeybee competition reduces the number and diversity of native pollinators, native plants also can suffer, since they may receive less efficient pollination. Best vegan alternatives to honey. If you're looking for an animal-free alternative to honey, check out the products and brands below. Number 1, agave. Agave is derived from the agave plant, a succulent native to the Americas, and is an excellent substitute for honey, whether it's added to tea or a recipe. But agave's popularity has led some farmers to use environmentally taxing production methods, and commercial production can harm endangered bats, making the product less sustainable than other honey options. Number 2, maple syrup. Like agave, maple syrup is a great one-to-one replacement for honey in recipes and has the same consistency. It's also reasonably sustainable since, properly tapped, well-tended maple trees can yield sap for more than 100 years. Number 3, brown rice syrup. Also known as rice malt or simply rice syrup, this honey alternative is often found in Asian foods and has become popular among consumers looking for a plant-based sweetener. 4, melody. Using a blend of plant science and microbial fermentation, Melibio makes genuine honey without exploiting honeybees. The company's bee-free Melody product has the same taste, texture, and viscosity as conventional honey. While not currently available in stores, you can find Melody at a variety of restaurants across the country. Number 5, vegan unhoney. The single-origin food company's vegan unhoney comes in 3 flavors: amber, made from organic cane nectar, blonde, made from organic date nectar, and copper, made from organic coconut nectar. 6. Suzanne Specialties Just Like Honey. Just Like Honey from New Jersey-based Suzanne Specialties is made from brown rice syrup, agave syrup, maple syrup, and natural flavors. Number 7. Bee-Free Vegan Honey. Made from organic apples, blended ups, bee-free vegan honey can be used as a base for smoothies or as a sweetener in place of bee honey, agave, or sugar. And number 8. Devash Organics. This Los Angeles-based company churns out date syrups. Made from just one ingredient, this date syrup makes for a great honey alternative. You just listened to Is Honey Vegan? Everything you need to know about why bees make honey. Part 2 by Mark Hawthorne at vegnews.com, and I'm Marian Erickson, your host. I think this is a fantastic article, kind of all-encompassing, a great summary of the issues. And I appreciate, too, how they touched on some of the quote-unquote humane beekeepers, like the biodynamic beekeeping. According to some information I Googled, some of them don't clip the queen bee's wings, some don't use artificial insemination, but they still take the honey. Some of them say they take the quote-unquote surplus honey only in the spring after the bees use what they need, supposedly. But let the bees have their own surplus. They made it. It's theirs. Why can't we just leave others alone to live their own lives? And the fact that the biggest threat to many of the 4,000 native bee species is the honeybee should be all it takes for people to not purchase or eat honey. If you'd like to hear a few other episodes on honey, I'll link these in the show notes, but check out 13, Why Vegans Don't Consume Honey. 342 is Honey Bee Barf, all about honey for kids. 444, Why Don't Vegans Eat Honey? And 445, Does Backyard Beekeeping Help Bees? And please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.